Well, good afternoon. Beautiful sunny day to be sitting inside having a meeting. So before we get started, thank you for participating in our remote regular monthly meeting of the Parks Advisory Board. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation and ask that everyone be patient as we navigate this electronic platform. We have two formats for participation, the Zoom web application as well as teleconference. Before we begin, I want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we're not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. During the meeting, all participants on Zoom, except for board members and county staff, will be placed on mute by the host. That means you will not be able to mute or unmute your lines manually. The chair will announce opportunities for public comment, which are included on the meeting agenda. Oops, I get to move my, come on, there you go. For those on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the raise hand feature to signal you would like to comment. The sound will be unmuted. The internet participant should announce their first and last names before speaking. The participant will be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. For those calling in using the phone line only, scroll. If you would like to make public comment, please dial *9 on your keypad to signal you would like to comment. The last four digits of the call-in number will be announced, and call-in participants should announce their first and last names before speaking. Participant will be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. Please note, you can hang up or leave the Zoom meeting at any time. That being said, welcome and welcome. First thing we'll go through with is introductions. I'll go first. I'm Larry Walker, South Kitsap, and I'm the chair at this point. Board members.
Lisa Hurt, North Kitsap.
Con Pearson, Central Kitsap.
Linda Berry Mare, North Kitsap.
Dawn Doctor, South Kitsap, District 2.
Hi, I'm Amy Lawrence, Central Kitsap.
And staff.
Alex Wisniewski, Parks Director.
Carmen Smith, Parks Planner.
And Irene Weber, Natural Resource Program Supervisor.
And Alex Hardy, Marketing and Events Supervisor.
Thank you very much. Okay, I hope everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any additions, corrections?
I'll make a motion to adopt the meetings of March 19th, 2025.
We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by John. Thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Amy? Okay. Opposed? We do have minutes. We now reach this point. Public comments, 3-minute time limit per person. Dee, do we have anybody in the queue? Wow. It's too nice to sit inside. I don't blame them. All right. Well, then moving on along, Parks and Recreation Open Space Pros Plan. This is, I don't want to beat this thing into submission. We've already had enough chances to nag Alex and the crew about this thing. So does anybody have any last minute comments before I call for a motion to accept or accept? Well,
Okay. Yeah, I have a few questions, but yeah, it was just, the fact that we changed the classification thing, which was great. Thank you for finding that error. But are there any guarantees that the public has in regards to conservation if Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park actually gets changed to a regional park classification? Because there's nothing in that description saying conservation at all.
So the way that the parks will be managed will not be based solely on the classification that they are bound to or that they are linked to. Those management plans will be based on a higher level of evaluation of the environment of the recreation components that they may or may not provide to the general public. And that is, and within that management plan, there will be the utilization of what is called the landscape classifications, which within that has conservation areas, it has natural resource or natural areas, and has this spectrum of different types of use from conservation up to active recreation. And the way that this would work out is when we do develop a management plan for a park, it would require an environmental evaluation kind of as a base layer. On top of that, there would be public engagement to look at what and where in terms of types of human-based recreation activity would be placed in relation to what we learn from the underlying environmental evaluation or the natural resource evaluation. That will then help dictate where those landscape classifications, those management zones get placed within the context of that park. And we do have that in the Port Gamble framework currently that does have a spectrum of different types of management areas through the use of the landscape classifications. So all of this, the point being, just because a park is labeled as a regional classification, contained within it can still be conservation areas, natural resource areas, as well as active recreation areas.
So is that like out of the 2018 PROS plan, then those classifications, or are you calling the framework or the old master plan, those classification or landscape classifications?
So the ones that are currently in the framework were really they started from the one that was in the 2018 PROS plan. And when they were doing the framework, they did some edits to it and made some changes. Before kind of stamping those in place, I want to, and we've talked about this, circling back to do another round of edits on those landscape classifications. So we would go back to the original document that was created, take a look at what the direction the framework was going in, and take a look and say, do these work? Do these not work? What type of edits do we want to make? And then kind of make those edits and then do another round of applying those to the park in terms of the framework. And that then would help dictate what the management of the park is going to be. How
Yeah.
we manage the park will be different based on different parts, different areas of that park, and how those classifications get applied.
That's why I think people are kind of nervous because, once you do change it to a regional park and those landscape classifications haven't been determined yet, and they're still being messed with, are there any guarantees? And that's what people are asking me. It's like, well, what's to say? Who's to say, if it's just going to become this big playground?
Well, that's not the intent, and that's not what we intend to do with the framework is going to go through another update process that will include a steering committee, a working group, public involvement. We may bring the consultant back to help facilitate this, and then bring it forward for approval. So the concept of the landscape classifications is a good one. I just think that they need refining. And actually other places I've worked, we had the exact same thing. We had these different management zones that we used and we applied across our park system. So I think it's good. I just think that we want to, because there's been some lack of enthusiasm with the landscape classification updates that are in the framework, they deserve another look at, and that this board will be part of it. It will start with the subcommittee of this board. And we will get some, we can create a steering committee that includes outside organizations as well. The bylaws for the Parks Advisory Board allow for others to participate in planning efforts like that, along with some subcommittee members of the PAB. So that's one way that we can pursue this.
And I guess a lot of people have commented to me also about the fact that they didn't feel like their voices were even being heard. So by then getting the consultant back or whoever, how are their voices going to be heard with this round too? I mean, they just feel like they're not being left out of the whole process.
Sure. I fully understand what not being heard means, because whether it's the PROS plan or the framework, there was opportunity for public involvement. Now, whether, the staff decides to take the comments and apply what we are receiving doesn't necessarily equate to somebody not being heard. If we, make the decision that that is not the appropriate application for whatever the comment may be. So that's a difficult one to respond to. But our, intent is for community engagement to help guide the process and have that input. But really, it comes back to staff and the county to balance all of the comments and everything that we receive based on what the park dictates, what the park needs.
Thank you.
Alex, just to add with the involvement from the Port Gamble framework from the first time, we started that in 2021 or 2020 when COVID was ongoing. So we were not allowed to meet in public settings. So a lot of the first couple of rounds of feedback were all online, which it was all new back then, and we were trying to navigate and figure things out as we were going. So I don't know if that played a role in people not being heard, but we had just huge challenges in the public feedback comment period for that framework.
Thank you. It was based off the original master plan though, right? So the master plan happened and then that got morphed into the framework, which
I mean, the document is one and the same, as just the title of it changed.
and I think a lot of people were confused as to why it even got changed, because then a lot of people couldn't even track it. It was like, where'd it go? What's it? Why is it changed now? Why are they changing it? Well, it was a conspiracy. I've
think,
heard it all.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I understand. And there was a lot of confusion around it. And that is why we want to bring it back into public light, do some updates to it, and then bring it forward to the commissioners for an actual approval, which is at the very outset what we always talked about, what we were going to do. So yes, fully recognize that we did not follow that process, but we are going to loop back to it. So.
Right. Well, there's more, but I'm hoping somebody else has something to say. That's a big document. It's like,
Linda.
First of all, thank you. And I really appreciated this matrix to be able to track the changes. So it was really helpful in sorting through where the changes were and being able to find them. So again, on the definitions of the parks, I was trying to, so is the definition, so this table 2.13 has the list of the parks and the classifications, and that says nature parks. Is on pages 139 and 40, it says natural areas. Is that the definition of nature parks, or am I looking in the wrong spot? So the regional parks is defined, but I didn't see, it just is different wording. So I didn't know if that's actually a nature park is the same as a natural area, or did I miss something?
No, you did not. The use of the word nature park is basically a combination of I don't know what they're called, but hang on just a sec. The natural areas and the green spaces. So it was kind of an evolution of what lives in the appendices, those two kind of combined together.
Okay.
And I think we called that out in the park classification section in the plan proper.
Maybe that's something we could, the reason I wanted to look at it is that, you know, I do think that the document will, when we all adopt it, you know, is gonna, people are gonna look at this and try and understand what the difference is. And I was trying to find a spot to look side by side between what's the difference on that regional park and the nature parks. And one of the questions, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it tonight is that back in, you know, probably it was 15 years ago, because I know my daughter was in high school, running cross country, and the Hansville Greenway, which had originally been bought with active recreation money, did their own plan. And one of the first events that was not allowed to happen in the park was a cross country team from North Kitsap High School.
Wow.
And so that North Kitsap High School cross country team, that was considered an event. And it was no longer allowed to happen in the Hansville Greenway. And I think that, you know, the intention initially is that the Greenway stewards had, they were wary of big commercial events. And similarly, the language that came out in the North Kitsap Heritage Park Stewardship Plan, which hasn't been formally adopted, also had language in it saying that you couldn't have events. And I had always worried about the ability of Kingston High School, which is literally across the way there. You know, does that mean that their cross-country team wouldn't be able to run in the park? Because my daughter's team was now running in the streets of Paulsville, which I did not think was safe. And has not hosted a local event since that whole thing that initially they went to Port Gamble. It was before Port Gamble's Park. But so my question is that I was hoping we could look at those two definitions, because I would think Lisa and I probably have different perspectives on it, but it'd be interesting to find the wording, to look at the right wording together, because you know, we have an awful lot of, we have a lot of parks, one, hallelujah. But how those are defined, I expect matters. And I know that both the Hansville Greenway and the North Kitsap Heritage Park had some active recreation money in the the acquisition purchase. So I was just curious to look at the language, the definition, and I think I was looking in the wrong spot.
Sure, I understand that. I also want to come back to the notion that the park classification does not dictate how the park will be managed, that we will develop park management plans for each park that is specific to the uniqueness of that park. And some of those will be highly, you know, biased on the active recreation side. Some of those will be, you know, fall on the pendulum swing to the other side, like a Nick's Lagoon, and be extremely set up as conservation parks. And so that will be premised on, you know, what the purpose of the park is, what type of natural features are there, and what type of, you know, we're hearing from the community as well. So the classifications are really set up as a way for us to group like and similar parks together, but they don't dictate how that park is intended to be managed.
Sorry, in that page of the classifications, and I don't know if we could pull that up, and does it say that? Like, you know, is it in like a bold text box that I just missed, because I think I was looking in the wrong spot?
We did add some language. I believe it's the last paragraph in the park classification section that talks about this is not a dictate management. There's a process for that, and we kind of, in broad terms, kind of highlight what that is.
It's also called out in Appendix B, the standards and guidelines, which has the definitions. We did add a little paragraph intro in there, which,
In this part?
yeah, yes, right under that horizontal line that define or that separates the types of parks classifications.
You know, I think it could be said more clearly because Alex, your short paragraph, this is, to me, your paragraph was more clear. Your, sentence was more clear than this. And I'm wondering if we could craft something like that, that literally was graphically punched to reassure people, regardless of their perspective, that this little chart, nature or regional, whatever it is, isn't the be all end all of his, nothing, can never happen in there in a nature park that isn't, what somebody's expectation of his nature or vice versa on the other side. Could we put a statement like that and really punch it so that people see it? Because, it is a big document. It's easy to miss stuff. I missed that. So, I'd like to make that suggestion, and really it could just be as simple as a sentence, but that really visually is noticeable.
Okay, understood. I think we can draw some greater amount of attention to that, Tom.
Yes, Dawn.
Thank you. So I just want a clarification because I think so you were saying that, because when we're talking parks, that within the same park, one area maybe the active is allowed and in another area it won't be because of the landscape classification. One thing I think is really difficult is both the landscape classification and the park classification, both are called classification. Can we come up with something different so that they are very distinguishable? Because I think that's half of the issue.
Yes. So thank you for that. That is a conversation we have had internally too, and have kind of tentatively called them, landscape management zones or something like that to draw that distinction between the park classifications. Now, when we met with Lisa and some of the members of KEC, we looked at what the state parks have, and they have something that's called land use classifications. It's very similar to our landscape classifications. And those, the state park system applies those multiple different land use classifications across a single park as well. So they apply those in the same manner that we do ours. They call them something different. I think landscape classifications is a little confusing. We would like to change that as well. When we get into, updating or refining what we have, we can take a look at that and change that name. Yes. So yes, yes, it is confusing. Yeah.
Okay.
Stop calling everything a classification.
So Alex and everybody, kind of what I've been hearing here, okay, just to kind of distill stuff, is basically what people are looking at now is not great big overarching adjustments, but more along the lines of clarification, simplification of the message put out by am I fairly well capturing that? And those adjustments so far, okay. Oh, okay. Spoiler alert. So when we're for these adjustments and everything, even if, if we approve, these adjustments can still be considered and adjusted in before it goes to the planning commission.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
You can make a recommendation with caveats in it too, that states, with this change, we approve it, and just to kind of put some, some muscle behind the recommendation.
Okay.
But yes, we can bolster the language in the appendices in that paragraph to help clarify what the park classifications are and what they aren't.
Oh, okay. Just making sure I'm trying to make things simple today, which I know this is government, so why would we want to do something like that? But, so at least you had more? Yeah. Well, okay.
Just one that is really kind of a bug in my craw. The stewardship group, I still, the other day I went on a native plant walk at one of the parks with a steward, and it was incredible. I mean, the depth of knowledge that these stewards have is just, phenomenal. And, their knowledge of every little detail of the park for years is just incredible. But I don't understand still why those stewardship groups are being phased out and put into M&O. But I heard this morning at the meeting that I think Irene mentioned that there's still going to be some in the natural resources section and then some in M&O. I didn't quite understand that this morning. So I was wanting clarity on that.
Yeah, so just for the sake of clarity, 5 years ago, volunteer program was in maintenance. That's where it was managed. When we created the Natural Resources Division in 2021, we moved it over to Natural Resources as a way to create the program, create the team, because the majority of the work that the volunteers were doing were in the natural areas of our parks. And so we pulled that and the forester together to begin the construction of the Natural Resources Program or Division of Parks, which didn't exist before.
But right away you started with the volunteer program. I think there's a clarification that needs to be distinguished between, I know the stewards are volunteers, but they're different than just a volunteer. So that's where I think before 5 years ago, those stewards, I don't think were in M&O. They were more like, well, they were in a classification of M&O, but
No, they were, I'll clarify, the
Okay.
volunteer coordinators were managed by the maintenance and operations supervisor. So they were under the M&O umbrella, but that's where the staff person lived, was in the maintenance program. That was the coordinator for all the volunteer activities across the park system, whether they were the stewardship groups or they were the work parties, or they were, coordinating with, the various groups, Washington Youth Academy or whomever. That component lived under maintenance and operations. Historically, that's where it was in the department. What we were talking about this morning was slightly different, and that is it is a different way of operating the program activities and what we are looking to do. And so before the volunteer coordinators did everything. They did the coordination behind the scenes. They got the materials purchased and arrived on site for whether it's the stewards or a work party. They got the tools there. They were on site for those events. And then they helped manage some of them on site.
this is after you're talking about the recent group of volunteer coordinators that now aren't. I mean, because the stewards did that before.
No, well,
because now you're using a different term. So I'm trying to follow you, Alex. Really, I am. So, okay.
So when the stewards were doing a project,
Uh-huh.
it was the volunteer coordinators that brought them the tools. It was the volunteer coordinators that purchased the material for the stewards to lay gravel on a trail or do whatever the project is. There was the volunteer coordinators were the department representative who worked with the stewardship groups to bring them the tools, to coordinate the materials, to do the advertising of the work parties and so forth. That dates back to when Lori Raymaker was there, and then it turned into 2 coordinators after that. And then we bolstered it up to 3 coordinators. What we're looking at today is not putting all of those responsibilities on the plate of the volunteer coordinators. Instead, utilize the volunteer coordinator position to facilitate the the coordination, the incoming projects and Irene, you can probably will have more words than I do right at the moment, but have the projects that are coming in, whether it's trails, whether it is vegetation based or whatever, and coordinate that with the appropriate staff across the department. And so depending on what the project is, sometimes they'll be working with natural resources staff. Sometimes they'll be working with maintenance and operations staff as we shift maintenance of trails over to our maintenance and operations folks, and so forth. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just kind of want to emphasize that the primarily, we're looking at as we go through a process of working more cohesively as a team and in our department, that the activities that the stewards and the volunteers have done for the entirety of the Parks Department, those aren't necessarily going to change. If some of the stewards have more of an interest in native plants and restoration, and other stewards have more of an interest in trail design and trail building and things like that. All of those things are still going to happen, and those things are still going to have opportunities for steward and volunteer participation. It's just really an administrative change on our side about how that work is going to be coordinated across our entire department instead of entirely on the back of 2 to 3 people. And there's still going to be opportunity for planning and input into how these parks are managed. That'll be, part of steering committees and updates to planning processes. So there's going to be opportunities for all the things that people are interested in doing. It's really just going to look a little different on our end.
I guess then why are all the stewards, or I've had a lot of stewards coming to me and saying like they've been like laid off or told they're not needed, or
I don't know where that message is coming from.
really? Okay.
I think where part of that misconception is coming is due to the dial back of the number of county managed work parties and all the properties and everything, because lack of staffing and everything. So they may be reading that as the fact that they're being laid off, as opposed to possibly when they come speak to you, what you might want to offer to them is to become a stewardship leader, certified stewardship leader, just like getting your chainsaw
I
qualifications.
think they have been for 15 years.
Well, if there's, the stewardship leader program has not been around that long but if they get their full certification, then they can lead stewardship, work parties in the parks.
Huh.
With that, they do not have to have a parks person right there, because they are basically at that point representing the Parks Department. So then that would still keep stuff moving forward. We get a lot of that stuff done down in Banner that way, where they have designated stewardship leaders, and also where we have people working with like Washington Trails Association, things of that nature. So, we're figuring out how to get around that kind of stuff. Yes, Dawn. Oh. Okay, we will go to our Brady Bunch. Amy.
Hi, I'm wondering, Lisa, is there specific language in the plan that they're referring to? I'm not hearing those concerns from the stewards that I work with, but I'm just curious if there's a particular section that's concerning or a language that's concerning.
I can't point it out right now, but I know that the word steward basically, I think, has been X'd or axed, and it's just everyone's volunteer. And I just know from stewards I've talked to, and not just one park in particular, but there's been a few now where they feel like, they're just being shoved aside. So that's a concern. So there's a lot of people quitting or just not wanting to do it anymore, which is sad because there's such a valuable resource. And that was part of my question was, who's going to pay for it if, we're having staffing problems in the parks and, all the work they've been doing for free. So.
And that's a concern. I agree, but I'm just wondering if it's related to the plan or if it's.
I know Katie Walters even brought it up at the meeting, the 2 meetings ago that I saw her at, or she was online, and she brought it up that the stewards at Central Kitsap were complaining that they felt like they were being cut out of the system. So, yeah, Katie brought it up. Is
Okay.
Okay, we've got some Dawn. You're so patiently waiting over there.
Thank you. So I had two comments, but first one was back to Irene's, but first I'm going to address Larry's comment about his idea that part of the conflict with lead stewards may be due to the lack of staff. I'm going to comment now, not necessarily as a park advisory board member, but as a lead steward that chose to no longer be a lead steward at the end of last year. And it was not due to the reason for lack of staff. I chose to go in and talk with Alex personally about some of those reasons why I chose. And I think many of them had to do with lack of communication between myself and park staff, and my feelings of different treatments between different groups, be it parks or different types of recreation groups. And I think a lot of it boils down to personal experiences, and it could have to do with not having long-term parks planners and things like that to get things done. But it was an incredible frustration with communication from me personally. So I think there are many reasons out there, and I know that mine was just a personal experience, and I didn't want to get into details during this meeting. But the other thing I wanted to comment on was, I think is related when we talk about volunteers and stewards. Is there any plans with parks to make a distinction between volunteers that come out, say, once or twice or 3 times a year versus volunteers that say have experience that, say, WTA, for example, they have their trail building experience, or the bike trails, they have experience on bike trails, versus somebody who has incredible experience for that particular environment. And I think that is a term that we often use as stewards, as local stewards. That's how we kind of feel. The distinction between a volunteer and a steward is that the steward has a lot more knowledge of a particular area and have worked long-term over that. And is there a way that parks is going to create more relationships like we have with, say, WTA? Are you going to reach out to things like, say, if Washington Native Plant Society, if their restoration stewards had groups or things like that to work with, or other distinctions that you're going to make?
Sure. But we're in an evaluation process, especially with our reduction in staffing and with budget concerns, to look into more of those partnerships and figure out exactly how we're going to do that. I don't want to go too in depth into that because it's outside of the scope of the pros plan, but it is certainly a consideration that we're looking into.
Linda.
I had 2 things. One, along the Lisa's question, I think that part of it, I didn't see anything in the pros plan. So I would think this might be a topic for a separate discussion. But the definition of stewards, initially, it's been a lot of years that we've had the stewardship groups. And then Arno also had that series of classes for the forest stewardship, and both were called stewards, right? And both were volunteers. But I think there are some people who put a lot of energy into that training that maybe feel like that's they're unhappy with that, but I think also the other park stewards and some people were, you know, there's a mix is that it does feel like there's been some challenges on that I do think has to do with staff training and frankly, the amount of pressure that was put in on staff. So, but I don't think that has anything to do with the pros plan, which is the topic du jour. But I do think that that would be worth having a discussion at a separate time. I wanted to follow up, and I was trying to just write down what I thought Alex said. And I don't know if it's correct or not, but I was wondering if this was accurate, what is park classification name, table 2-13, does not define how each park will be used by the community. That will happen within the individual park management plans. I don't know that that's the right wording, but something along those lines. I don't know if that's, I was just trying to have a statement that is, you know, a succinct that says, hey, you know, this is just a definition, so it fits in a chart. We need to move on. There will be more detail coming along later. You don't have to get really concerned about exactly the one word that fits in the chart. And I don't know if maybe Alex, maybe you want to wordsmith it. but-
Yeah, I mean, it's close. I think that we would probably add some additional words to it.
Mhm.
And we do have a pretty good statement or a short paragraph that's in the main plan in the park classification section on whatever.
30.
Page 33, that maybe we can use some of that language and duplicate it in the appendices, or modify it a bit or something to that effect. But yeah, I'm happy to take that too, if you'd like.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and it's in the pros plan, but I think it's just factual, is that when you look on page 42 of the pros plan, the staffing levels compared to our acreage is daunting. And I think that as one, it's just the facts in the pros plan, but I do think that this board should weigh in. We are an advisory board to the county, and I fully expect as the county moves forward with the budget pressures, that parks is going to be under a lot of pressure, and I am worried about it. I know you are not surprised, but you know, last year we made a recommendation to the commissioners that they should look at having one of the positions in the natural resources between that and the forester would be coming from general fund. And instead what we have is and part of it is just the budget world we're living is that we're losing 3 additional positions. But I do think that this board later on in this year, and maybe even, as the changes come forward, should be prepared to refer to this table and bring that up again, because I am really worried about the impact on parks and how the budget acts falls. So I just wanted to point that out. I expect we all agree with it.
So are we ready to move forward on this? I would entertain a motion to adopt.
I would like to make a motion that we accept, as a board, we accept the pros plan and vote, accept the pros plan, and that it should be sent forward to the county commissioners.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We fairly well beat this thing into submission. Are there any last comments?
So.
Yes, Linda.
Under discussion, is the board okay with some kind of punching of that statement about the park classification? I mean, the staff would develop it, but I just think that it's important to, I think that there'll be a lot of conflict and concern about the names that fits.
Could you read it again, please?
It's not perfect. What mine said is park classification name, table 2-13 does not define how each park will be used. That will happen within individual park management plans.
John, would you be open to a friendly amendment to your proposal? And Amy, would you be open to that?
Yes.
So what we have before the board now is a motion to adopt with empowering staff to make the clarificational adjustments as noted by the members of the advisory board. So let's call it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't even go on record. Okay. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition. Alex, you have our recommendation to move forward with this. Thank you very much for everybody. Excellent suggestions, by the way. It was some great conversation. Yes, I knew we were way off reservation, but it was some good stuff. Actually gave me some wonderful ideas here. The whole conversation about stewards, volunteers, this, that, and the other. The way my little mind works is that would be something excellent to bring before the capital projects and parks subcommittee for conversations. And amazingly enough, we have some people here on the committee that had concerns. And I see your hand there, Don. I'll be with you. This is my speechifying time. And as for the whole concept of looking at the lack of staffing, loss of staffing, this, that, and the other versus budget crunch and everything. Thanks for finding a job for me there, Linda. I would think that would be something that could be brought before the Finance and Budget Committee.
Yeah.
How's that for getting marching orders there for you, Alex? I'm good. Okay, Don, what you got?
I agree with you, Larry, but I also think that Parks is currently right now in the middle of working with the consultant and rearranging. And so I think as much as I would like this to happen immediately, I do want to give Parks the time to get worked through their reorganization. And then I hope it is brought to actually two subcommittees now that you've mentioned the finance, but also the other one that deals with stewardship and things like that. And I think they're two separate groups, but I would like us to give Parks a little bit more breathing room to get their ducks in a row before they bring them to us. And then we start the conversation.
Oh, I wasn't asking to put these subcommittee meetings together by the end of the week and everything. No. I have a legislature's in session and I have bills that pay. No, we're not going to try to put that big a bum's rush on them. Next Tuesday. My computer is smarter than me. It's a very old and dumb computer. Okay, thank you very much. Now, Alex, Parks report.
Yeah, before we go into that, I do want to say thank you to the Parks Advisory Board for the comments, for the in-depth review, for the scrutiny of the pros plan. It is not perfect. There are things that we continue to work on as a department. And some of those we discussed tonight that are very operational based about how we function within the umbrella of what the Parks Department is, our different divisions, our different program areas. Those day-to-day operation type things that we carry out don't really live in the pros plan in high level of detail. So those are the pros plan is this, big, gigantic 30,000 foot view of the Parks Department looking at goals, objectives, and projects. We use this as an opportunity to dig into or attempt to dig into some of the finer details that we wanted to draw attention to for the commissioners, for the community and others who pay attention to what Kitsap County Parks does. One of those, Linda, thank you for bringing it up, is that staff comparison. The original hope was to have more information in the pros on that, that dictated how far underwater we are currently, and where we needed to get to in order to kind of right size the department to provide the appropriate amount of support from staffing, from budget, to balance the system as it exists and the needs as we hear it from the community. We are not there. This is just a very little bit of information that's in there. But it very broadly highlights the challenge. We do have some, I have some hard conversations coming up with the commissioners about the impacts of the pending 2026 budget cuts and what those are going to look like, and in terms of positions, as well as in terms of impacts to our operations, and therefore the services, what we're able to provide to the community, which also has impacts to, use of outside organizations, partnerships, volunteers, stewardship groups, and how we function differently. We'll be working on that. We already are working on that, but we'll bring that back to the Parks Advisory Board. Eventually, it needs to get filtered through the appropriate channels with the commissioners, at the budget office, et cetera. But that is stuff that is being worked on. I love the idea of the Parks Advisory Board showing support to the department by talking with the commissioners about the pending budget cuts and saying, please, please, please don't cut parks, or don't cut us that much. That, we have challenges in these areas, and that can, the voice that you speak with carries volumes with the three commissioners. They listen to you. They understand and heard the message that you sent last year with regards to the two natural resource positions that live in the forestry program. I will say that conversation is not dead. It is part of this this budget conversation we're having with them for 2026. So there are things that are, I can't say everything, but there are things that are kind of in motion that will come up. I have in your packet on the second page after the agenda, in the section that is the subcommittee meetings. I added a bunch of meetings on there based on the policies, and I'm going to share my screen just so y'all can see it. Oops. So on the screen, we are working on a few things, and some of the things that were talked about by the Parks Advisory Board are items that we are bringing back to you in subcommittees and then to the board, trying to create a process of initiating conversations on policy updates or engagement needs, whatever they are, with the subcommittee, and then you bring it forward to the board once we have worked out some of the kinks. What we are talking about here, and this will be one of the next projects for Carmen to undertake. This is not one that was talked about earlier, but our capital improvement projects, we have a ridiculous amount of projects to try and accomplish over, the next zillion years. But there is a question of how and which one, and how do we rank these? How do we compare these to each other? How do we prioritize? We don't have a methodology. We don't have a mechanism in the department. We need to create that. So what we are intending to do is in May, begin that process. That will start with the Parks Advisory Board Subcommittee, likely a couple different meetings in May. And Carmen's going to do some research to figure out what this looks like in other organizations. We can lean on the Public Works has some of this for some of their, I mean, it's not an exact translation, but we can at least see how this could get set up and start to work on creating this tool. Then we can use this tool to apply it to our laundry list of projects to help us prioritize and plan them out accordingly. We have the forest restoration and stewardship policy update. This came before the Parks Advisory Board last year. Will come back to the Parks Advisory Board in June from Kevin and Irene at the subcommittee level before it comes back with the full board. There will be another round of presentations of updates and talks about how we roll this out to the community. And then the Finance and Budget Committee is up there for the 2026 budget development. Included in that are most certainly going to be conversations around the impacts from the budget cuts and what that looks like, what we're being directed to do from the commissioners, which we have not received that direction yet, so we don't really know, which makes planning really hard. We are planning for, like 8 different options of impacts. And that is a challenging place to be right now because we don't really know what to do. And that makes it really hard. But as a component of that is how we operate too. So there's some kind of, not the primary topic, but there's some second tier impacts from that. And the last one, big policy that we have on here is another one that's come before the board before. This is the event policy and fee schedule updates that came before in 2024. We're doing some revisions to that, in part based on comments we got from the Parks Advisory Board, and in part based on our legal folks want some formatting changes. So we're going through a bunch of formatting changes right now, but that will eventually come back. And so these are big policy kind of policy documents, I don't know what we're going to call them, that are going to come back before the Parks Advisory Board that we are working on in 2025. The second half of 2025, after we get through, hopefully we get to a good place on the CIP priority methodology. That's when we want to come back and start, and we have freed up time off of Carmen's plate. We can then take on the update to the landscape classifications. And so the intent is to come back in the second half of 25, bearing everything goes well, and we will start in on that. And we've already started discussions of how is that going to work? Who from the community do we want involved? And we want to pull in some, create like a working group with different opinions. Like, let's get us at the table and let's talk through this. And I think it'll be good. And we will create this in a way that is not premised on a park initially, just what is it meant to be? How is it going to function? And then we can do the application to the parks when we do those park planning efforts. And that will help get us to the management plan for those specific parks. So, anyway, wanted to share this. This wasn't in the parks or the director's update, but I wanted to talk about what we have planned for the year and how it relates to the Parks Advisory Board subcommittees and the board, and kind of what are the topics that are going to come forth in addition to our normal monthly updates that sometimes we'll put a lot of attention to, sometimes we're not, because we've got other things to talk about, but you're still going to get those updates. Dawn, did you have your hand up earlier?
No, it's fine.
Oh, okay. I talked too much.
No,
so-
it was perfect.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that was item number 1 I wanted to touch on with regards to the director's report. Well, not really on there, but I guess I got the the opportunity. The second one is I wanted to provide an update on capital projects. We have added some capital projects to our list because they have finally gotten some legs and they're starting to move, and that's kind of exciting. The first one on here is an update on the Point No Point Beach and Shoreline Repair Project. It was either yesterday or the day before, cleared the hurdle of the permitting with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So we got over that hurdle. We're past state of Washington, WDFW and Department of Ecology, and we're kind of on to the U.S. Coast Guard now. So all things going well. That one will hopefully speed along as quickly as it possibly can, and will then get us to a point of doing the repair work during the water work window of August 15th to October 15th. So we are still, it's a very tight timeline. We don't have the permits, but we need to bid the project. We need to get somebody under contract, and we need to schedule the work. We had talked this morning, Lisa was there for it, looking at kind of moving the bidding process forward in advance of having the permits. Typically, you don't do that. You wait till you get your permits and then you go into the bidding. But having these two things overlap a little bit just to save some time. There's a little bit of risk involved, but the commissioners basically gave us an unofficial thumbs up to go forth in that process in order to try and stay on track. So fingers crossed, everything moves well. We don't have any hangups with Coast Guard, and we can get this one over the finish line because it is long overdue. And I do not want this to drag on for another year. Next item on here is update on the North Gateway parking lot at Port Campbell Forest Heritage Park. This is the one that will come in off of Carver Drive. This one is out to bid currently. It is posted, and we will do the bid openings. It's a very public, very formal process. The bid openings next Tuesday on April 22nd. At that time, as long as all the submissions have met the requirements of the bid, the low bidder will get the award, and so long as it fits within our project budget too. And then we will contract with that person and then schedule the work. The intent is we would start, mid to late summer and conclude by the fall. Lisa.
What is the project budget for that project?
It is, I don't know off the top of my head, it's 1 point something million dollars. I don't recall, but I've got it in the CIP. I can find it. Yeah. Eagles Nest deck. Oh, sorry,
Just
Linda.
Real quick question on that, and wanted to bring it up. I was at the discussion this morning and was really surprised when Commissioner Rolfes raised the concern about is the right thing to do, open that parking lot right away because of potential user conflicts. And I certainly believe that that's absolutely the right thing to do. To have the bicyclists parking near the mountain bike ride park is going to reduce user conflicts. And I wanted to check with you, Lisa, and other people that are up there. But my feeling is that what has happened is that since COVID, there's been more and more use of the ride park, all constricted to the Bayview parking lot. And it's the bikes going from up there, back and forth that are more of a problem. Than I would think that opening that parking lot would reduce the user conflicts.
I
just
agree.
wanted to check.
Yeah.
So I said that,
Yeah.
but I thought that it just seemed, I was surprised that she was concerned about that. To me, that was just nothing but.
Well, I think people had a issue with the parking lot because it's got the STO hook to it, and there's things about it, but I agree with you, the fact that it will cut down the congestion down at the Bayview parking area, and a lot of the bikers go strictly to the bike park. And I mean, yesterday I saw 7 guys with non-electric bikes just slugging up that hill, 1800 or whatever it is, to get up to the bike park, and they did not look happy. So I was like, man, it would be great to get them out of here. And then that's just less people I have to see on bikes. I'm like, yes.
Would love when we do have that open, you know, you and Marion and Carol and whoever else to provide. I mean, I know it would be kind of anecdotal reports, but like, are you seeing a difference once that opens in terms of the user conflicts? Less bikes showing up at Bayview and, you know, because they are going up to this.
Oh, it's
North
gonna
parking
be absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we hope so as well.
Yeah, I have no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It will help a lot.
Okay. Okay, Eagle's Nest, we're sitting in the Eagle's Nest. The deck out here finally has some legs as well. That project has been picked up by the new Public Works Capital Facilities Division. And they are now in contract with C&G Engineering, who did the design for the new one. And that one started to move. Hopefully that will go out to bid pretty soon. So fingers crossed, that one goes. There was some minor updates to the original plans, and it should go out to bid pretty soon. And then hopefully by the end of summer, we've got a new deck. Maybe we'll have a meeting out on the deck in some nice weather. That would be great.
Maybe before the fair and the flies come in.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Maybe we'll be forced out there because of the flies. Okay, and then the last item on here is an update on the Gordon 1 soccer field across the street here and the 2 tennis courts, one in Indianola, one in Suquamish. Carmen, myself, and Alex had a meeting with Central Kitsap School District recently, and it was just kind of a meeting by happenstance, which was interesting because we were talking about something completely different. But the conversation evolved into what capital projects and things that were coming up this summer. And it turns out they have tennis court projects themselves, and they have turf projects themselves. They're replacing the turf at Olympic High School in the football stadium, and they're putting in a new artificial turf soccer field at Fairview Middle School, which is literally around the corner, the other side of Silver Spurs here. And so we had a good discussion with them about how they're going about it, what contractor they're using, what procurement contract or purchasing cooperative they're using. And we're going to sync up under that same procurement contract with possibly the same contractor and really take advantage of a lot of projects happening in this area together that will should help reduce cost by taking advantage of multiple things happening literally down the street. They don't have to mobilize multiple times. So there's should be some cost savings there. So we're excited to see those starting to move forward as well. And lastly, in the, sorry, Don, go ahead.
Oh.
If it's Larry. Oh.
Yes, Don.
It's me again.
Really, thank you.
Well, I've had some reservations about like the stewardship group going into M&O and some other various rearrangements in the park. I do have to say that especially over the last month, I'm seeing a lot of movement with, you're getting these projects put together and they're starting to move. I'm seeing signage in the parks. I've seen some porta potties out. And just with what you're talking about, some of these other things. And I don't know if it's just that you say Irene's been here long enough. We've brought in Carmen and moving other, like the other project planner over into things like that. So I think what you're doing, and I think we're finally seeing results from a lot of the hard work you guys have been putting in over the last year, even though a lot of us are complaining all the time. I'm also seeing what's happening, and I appreciate that.
No, thank you for that. There is And we are, I mean, we are feeling it. We are seeing results too. It is very helpful to have this new capital facilities division in Public Works to basically take some of these projects off of our plate, because we were trying to do those, you know, multitasking multiple positions, which is not effective. And recently we changed the way that our maintenance program is operating. Previously, they were running in 3 different crews, north, south, central, and they had specific parks that they focused on. And we've taken the snow globe and shaken it up, and it's settled differently. And we actually, next month, we will be coming back with Glenn Akramoff, who's the consultant who did that. And this new way of the maintenance team functioning came out of his, well, his study's still ongoing, but this kind of phase 1 change came out of his recommendation, and it has really invigorated the team. And I mean, they started on April 1st, so it's just kind of barely underway. But we are seeing results also. We have a better definition of jobs, of expectations, of what their roles are within the maintenance program, and things are happening in the parks at a higher rate than they were in the past. So thank you. I appreciate you recognizing some of that. Bree gets a lot of the credit for some of these changes, as well as noticing things in the field, like, hey, let's put a porta potty at Banner. So we have a porta potty at Banner. Yeah. Two. We have 2 there. All right. Okay, so the last item for the director's report, and of course, we will answer any questions you have about the items we're not going to touch on, but wanted Irene to talk about in the natural resources section. We have a couple new tables broken out for the volunteer and stewardship activity there. It was based on Dawn, a comment that you had last meeting about could we display the information about how the volunteer, the work parties activities are taking place, and just going to have Irene kind of walk through the top 2 tables on there, because the bottom 2 tables are what we've always shared in the past. So
Sure. So based on the comments from last meeting, I understood there was a desire to kind of see how the work parties are broken out a little bit more, what types of work parties there are, and things like that. So that is what this first table is. We've taken our work parties. There were 35 work parties in March, and broken it out by essentially which of our volunteer groups are working those work parties. So you can see the number of work parties, the number of participants in each of those work parties, and then the number of volunteer hours essentially that came out of that. There is an error in the bullets at the top under where it says volunteer work parties in March. The number of individual volunteer hours that are reported, that number's wrong. It is right in the table. So just wanted to point that out. Sorry, gang. So the work party table, you can see there were 35 work parties. 25 of those work parties had staff on site, and 10 of those work parties were led on site by stewardship volunteers. A lot of those, many of you know the group that we call the Applesauce Gang. A lot of those work parties were on that 3rd line down where it says Stewards, Newberry, and Illahee. A lot of those work parties were the Applesauce Gang. Then I also wanted to pull out the individual stewardship hours, and I want to put a big, this is reported with a big asterisk that I should have bolded and underlined and made in red and the font 300 times bigger. This is what has been reported either to Aaron directly or through our Volgistic system. So this is a known underrepresentation of the amount of individual volunteerism that is happening out in our parks. The reporting of individual hours is relatively new, and we're still figuring out the best way to do it. We do have some volunteers who every day that they go out there, they report their hours and they say this is what they did. We have some volunteers who report all of their hours on January 31st at midnight. So we don't get those hours until the very end. So it's hard to pull this out month by month. We're trying to develop a better system where it would be easier for people to report those hours so that we can better reflect the amount of work that's happening in our parks. So I just want to say, if you are not seeing your park on here and you know that you have done work in that park, I know that, you know that, the Volgistic system doesn't know that. So that's why it's not being pulled out in the data. So I just want to reflect that we don't have great data, but I did want to represent the data that we do have.
So the one glaring error or thing I didn't see this morning was Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park isn't on there. Why?
Because those individual volunteers haven't reported their hours. You will see in this report, we have a featured project at the top that talks about
Yeah.
Scott Orberg, who
Yeah.
went and installed all those signs. He hasn't plugged his hours in yet. So that's why it's not in the table. So, you know, part of this process of streamlining things is developing a system where it'll be easier for him to do so. And so that way we'll have better hours for it. He's one of the volunteers who tends to report everything at the end of the year. So that's why these reported individual stewardship hours for March specifically doesn't reflect his hours. We'd love it to. We just need to figure out a better system that makes it easier for him to do that.
I just wanted to point out that under the work parties at the top, the groups that you've worked with, you lumped stewards for Newberry and Illahee. I think we should give respect to the individual groups. So example, the Friends of Newberry Hill, instead of just calling them stewards, because I think we call out WTA or Washington Youth Academy by their name, that if you have a steward group that's working through a nonprofit like that, we may want to.
And that's where there's some confusion
Right.
about that, because, you know, the Illahee, there's an Illahee nonprofit that is the kind of different from the stewardship group. So there's like the functions of the stewardship groups as volunteers for the Parks Department. And then there's a function of those same individuals as parts of their nonprofit that don't necessarily have like a contract to maintain the parks within our system. So it's really a gray area. And that's some of where a lot of, I think, the confusion about who is doing what and what everyone's responsibilities are. So I would love to iron that out and be able to refer to people individually, but, you know, like Friends of Newberry Hill is a little bit different than, you know, some of the stewards. Sometimes some of the stewards who are involved with the work parties are not necessarily involved with the nonprofit group. And so there's a lot of confusion there.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that most of these, like Washington Trail Association or Washington Youth Academy, that they have contracts with you then, and that's why you call them out, or the Navy versus, say, Friends of Newberry Hill, you don't have maintenance, or what do you call them, memorandum of understandings?
Right. And that's where the gray area of the stewardship group gets really, really gray. You know, Washington Trails Association, we do have a contract with them. Washington Youth Academy, like that's a very discrete group that we have, you know, we work with them individually. The stewards, all of the stewards as they're volunteering are registered volunteers with the Parks Department. You know, the work that, you know, for example, like Jim Aho does for the Illahee nonprofit doing, is different. And so I think that's where a lot of the confusion is, especially where we have some groups who have consolidated as a nonprofit and then some that haven't. It's confusing about when people are acting for which group.
And with that, kind of concluded what I was planning on sharing with you this evening, but happy to talk about any other items in the director's report if you wish.
I was wondering, could you turn your microphone? Oh, sorry. The logging, you know, when I walked in, I kind of got a question, something that I wasn't looking at, or is the solution down here at the south end of the Port Gamble Park on the Stottlemyre parking lot, is that going to be acceptable to parks? I just was trying to picture where that logging road is going to go in and was wondering if it is going to interfere in any of the parking capacity.
It won't interfere with any of the parking capacity. It will come off of the, when you enter the parking lot, you've got the drive-through parking spots for the truck and trailer parking for equestrian. It's be right in front of that is where the road access will go through the park to bypass the section of private property that contains the road. And then it will, once it gets past that that private parcel, it will connect in with the existing road system that is.
So it's just gonna run parallel to 2100.
It will run parallel to it for about 800 feet, 800 to 1,000 feet, just to get past that and then connect back.
What
in.
about the house at the top of the hill? Will it just go right by that again? I mean, because that road passes several homes, and there's one at the top of the hill with the dogs, and
It will, I don't know exactly which one. I mean, this is going to, you're familiar with 2100?
oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that very first house, they were the ones that were the complainers that didn't want, all the traffic going by their house. So, it got changed. But if you continue up that logging road at the top of the hill, there's another house up there. I guess they don't care, or Pope will just keep going up there. I mean, that's where all the logs will come out of there.
Yeah, so if you look on the map, there's a couple gray areas here and here, and these are the areas that are targeted for 2026 for logging by Rainier. I mean, based on the agreement that we have, the purchase and sale agreement with Rainier, and this bypass road that will run parallel. And so it will be, I guess, just as close to, or maybe slightly further away from the homes than the original 2100, because it's pushed a little bit further north.
It's so sad. I mean, there's already a road. Why would they just go, now they're going to plow down more trees, but it's
Well, that the property owners have not allowed access
Right.
through the existing road. And without that road, there's no other connection to these other roads back in the southern part.
I
of the
know that's
park.
when I talked about them taking their trucks and they were going up on was it Clear Cut Trail or whatever, they were driving down that. So I'm
Yeah,
glad they're at least doing that instead of doing what they were doing, because that would have caused even more
yeah, I
problems.
mean, nobody wants to see this. It's not ideal. But it is based on, it's based on the agreement that we have. It's based on just the kind of reality that we're in. That's, the county doesn't own the trees. We still have this arrangement with Rainier. They still have, the right to improve roadways and install them so that they can access their right to the timber.
So all those trees that go around the new parking lot that you just put in, they own all those trees too? Those aren't,
No, there's a section of I can't remember how big it is. I think it's about 3 acres around that, where the parking lot lives. And that is owned by the county now.
that's what I thought. So
So-
they're able to still plow down those trees even though,
Well, the parking lot took up pretty much all of the acreage that came over to the parks. So basically just outside of the parking lot is trees that we don't own anymore.
oh,
Yeah, they weren't part of the agreement when we were working on that so that we could build the parking lot here. So,
okay.
Linda?
I wanted to just point out that the property owner where that red line is, that property under 2100, that first 800,000 feet was purchased by the neighbor as a tax title strip when ages ago, our treasurer auctioned off little odds and ends of tax title strips. So they owned it, which is why they were able to close it. And I do think that it's pretty important to have both, have some emergency access down there. I know I've been worried about it for a long time. If there was a fire out there or somebody gets badly hurt, how do you get there? So when that neighbor closed off 2100, there was no road
Right.
access in there, including
On
a
that
fire
end.
truck.
You're right.
So-
Okay.
That's a positive.
Yeah, no, that is, the property was purchased in 2005. So it's been owned by the same owner that currently has it and that closed it down in 2021, has had it since 2005. But they just closed it down in 2021.
So where they're doing the big clear cut, just what would that be? East of that, they did the last clear cut. I think if that's if I'm looking at the right spot. I was curious if they had replanted that area because it looked, well, maybe that's not the same area. Is that like, is that like Coyote? Is that all of Coyote?
No, it's way east of that.
That's east of Coyote?
Yeah, if you go way down that dip and then come all the way back up, that clear cuts up along that ridge trail that's just east of Big Valley.
So where's Millie's Trail in comparison to that? That would be near that box, right?
It's kind of in between the boxes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Like right
Okay, so, all right. Wow, those are nice trees. That's too bad. Did they, I was just curious, up where they did that massive clear cut, way up yonder. Anyway, there's one area that doesn't look like they replanted, but it's so full of Scotch broom now you can't tell. I was just curious, have they done all their tree planting of the clear cuts that they have done?
I don't know.
They've done a lot of it. So I think, things that were cut last year may not have been planted yet, but the things that were cut several years ago will have been planted. And that is an issue, is that we're having Scotch broom overtaking the trees.
Right.
So, part of the thinking about this park from a natural resource management perspective is what are our options there? We brought in Youth Corps last year to do a little bit of work, but even having a full-time crew working on that for 2 weeks, it's barely puts a dent in it.
Right.
So, looking at the type of work, if you've driven up towards Hansville, you can see some work that was done, I think, on either some of the Rainier land or some of the lands of the tri-bones where they've done a lot of Scotch broom removal work. That costs about $400 an acre. We have about 12,000 acres by my estimation that needs that type of work within our park. So, that's upwards of like $250,000 in order to do that treatment in that way. So it's part of the process of looking at it. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I'm working with our noxious weed board to talk about what our options are on how we can work on that. Some of the thought is that if we're able to quote unquote free the trees, the common thought is that if you can get one whirl of the branches of the trees up above the Scotch broom, then they will be able to overtake it at some point, and then it'll be a waiting game. But we're looking into options about what's possible, because it's a big issue and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, moving on along, any subcommittee reports? Apparently, we haven't had any subcommittee meetings, so we'll fix that here in the nearby future. So district representative reports. Who wants to go first?
I will, since my mic's on.
Go ahead.
Still finding toys up in the north, but it's getting better. I have to say, I went on a walk yesterday was my first walk in months where I haven't found a toy. But, I went in a different area. So, it's just, I don't know what it is, but, yeah. So, those spikes, that's the biggest thing right now, the 10-inch screws. So you guys didn't hear about it, but they were using 5-inch spikes to screw their, dinosaurs into logs and trees. And yeah, but now they're using 10-inch spikes. So it's a war between me and them now. Literally. I mean, they're doing it because of me, I'm sure. And, so yeah, it's not funny. I'm wrecking my hands getting these things out of, without tools, because I don't bring tools when I go walking. So, yeah, but pulling a 10-inch spike out of a
You
tree-
can tell us too. We will go out there with tools.
I know, but then I get so mad in the moment.
Oh,
I just
okay.
have to rip them
I
out.
just can't imagine unwinding a 10-inch
Well, you have to take a
spike.
boulder first and smash it so you can bend it, and then you can twist it out. But yeah, so that's the trick. If anyone needs to remove large screws.
That is
from
very
the-
MacGyver-esque.
It is. I'm a
Yes.
farmer. I
Yeah.
do things all the time.
Impressive.
Thank you. But yeah, anyway, that is getting better, I hope. Anyway, thank you for posting that on the Facebook page. I got sent the link. So yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. I'll take more yeah, okay.
You mean there is a use for Facebook?
I guess, yeah.
I
it was
guess,
like-
yeah. Anybody else? Okay, well, I do
Oh,
have
wait,
one.
Dawn had one. Dawn.
Oh, Dawn. Good. I don't have
Sneaking,
bird
Larry.
eyes.
Next time I'll, um, I was just gonna say, we kind of already mentioned the toilets out at Banner, which is really great. But also a lot of improvements were out at Horseshoe Lake recently too at the fairgrounds and, or not fairgrounds, with the playgrounds and things like that. So things are moving along.
Okay, well, Alex, I'm going to be sending some information over to you tomorrow, kind of a whole plethora of stuff. They just passed a bill yesterday that's got to be a little get adjusted between the House and Senate that is adjusting real estate excise taxes. So I will send that over to you tomorrow. And also I will, they did tentatively pass an operating budget, but they have a conference, it's going to conference, so we don't know what it's actually going to look like. But I will send you that information also, because I never thought that I would be living this deeply in the state budget. However, and thank you all for the toilets and at Banner.
Two punches. I'm David Onstead of Port Orchard. Okay, I've already used 1 minute of my 2 minutes, and so I'm David Onstead of Port Orchard. I've been thinking about, I've been thinking about a lot of things, but recently there's been a change to the pros plan, something about the name of a park, the classification of a park, the land classification within a park has not as much meaning as we think it might have had, because you still have to go through and do the real environmental assessments and other assessments that are needed to fully appreciate the land, the wetlands, before you actually implement a plan, something that's going to maybe disturb the environment. And then that got me to thinking, well, at what point do we know we can relax and feel that we can move forward? And of course, I was thinking the annual work plans for the stewards, those were kept to a minimum in terms of their sophistication and so forth. So maybe, we could rely upon the work plans to be acceptable, and we would move forward on those on an annual basis. But then there was always that master plan framework issue. We were told we couldn't do anything really sophisticated until we had land classification and a framework. And then we realized, well, but the commissioners aren't really approving the frameworks. But in the end, they actually are going to approve the framework for Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park in 2026. And that's after a little bit more environmental assessment, which is good, of course. But then the question is, how much is moving forward in Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park without the future environmental assessment and the approval of the commissioners in 2026? And so I'm still, as a steward, former steward, citizen, I'm still completely confused about when can we relax and not worry about lawsuits from environmentalists or protests from those that don't get their way. How do we know when we can really move forward without confusion, chaos, and all that? That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that is a really, really huge question. And I'm not even going to ask Alex to try to address that in the short amount of time I have left in my life. I'm only going to, yeah, I'm only going to live to be at 135. So I don't know that he has enough time. D, do we have anybody in queue? We do.
We do have public comment, and Beverly Parsons, I am allowing you to talk.
Thank you. I'm Beverly Parsons from Hansville. I just wanted to call attention to the fact that I forwarded you as members of the board an email that I had sent to the Board of Commissioners this morning, or was it this morning? Yeah, I guess it was, about appreciation for what has transpired in terms of Alex and Carmen meeting with several of us about some of the issues that we had. And I especially, I'll let you read the message, and I won't comment on the whole thing here, but I really wanted to call attention to the fine work that Carmen has done, having come in so recently and have picked up on something that has been, years in the making from many different people. And she has managed to pull that together and put forth some organized responses to comments that I just want to commend you, Carmen, for that excellent work. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to hear kind words. We don't always hear that.
We have Carol Price and allowing you to talk.
Good evening. I have kind words for David Onstadt. I really appreciate what he said. And I also have kind words for Lisa because I am devastated that they're cutting that forest in the corner in the 2100 logging road area. There's a trail that goes down the hill to Midgard Way that I like to walk, and it's peaceful. There are no bikes. I will miss it very much, but so it goes. My first question is the stewardship manual still in effect that you guys worked on? It is a little confusing. And that's one question. Is there any way we can get a updated copy of the 2025 agenda items and subcommittee meetings chart by the month? Because the one I printed off doesn't have the detail that Alex showed. And then also the work party chart. How can I get a copy of that? And my suggestion, finally, I've never been very happy with how trails are being done. I was just on Mount Walker today, and the comment was that trail is being maintained by the WTA. And I said, I don't even recognize it anymore. They've changed it so much. Yes, they did it because of the traffic, but it's just such a heavy-handed approach to trail maintenance. And I think I've been coming to these meetings for a few years now and complaining about the heavy-handedness of trail maintenance. It's sad. So yeah, if I could get copies of those documents, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I believe, Alex, you can, because that was all included in our board package, you can just send that.
I'll send it. Yeah.
Okay. I believe it is online, but, well, thank you, Carol. Appreciate that. D. No one else in queue? Well, all righty. There's only one more item on my agenda, which is this word called adjournment. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Got a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your lives. We will, same bat time, same bat channel to show my age.